Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, ladies and gentlemen. This show is about a guy who looked very, very good on Saturday. Now, not just about him, about the whole quarterback room. I'm going to talk about receivers. I'm going to talk about some other things that stood out to me as well. Some random facts you might find interesting about the O-line, etc. Things of that nature. But ladies and gentlemen, the central theme of today's show is Dylan Raiola the real deal based on the information we have so far? We can't make any sort of declarative statement just yet. Okay, but based on the information so far, do I believe that Dylan Raiola looks like the real deal? Now, before I get into that, I just realized, so I have like a whole closet full of just Nebraska, Chronicles shirts that I kind of choose from before each show. I forgot to do that. What am I wearing? Snow Buddy Dog Sled Adventure. I don't remember if I've talked about that on this show or not. They're not a sponsor or anything. Just a great shirt that's really comfortable. Steamboat, over spring break, we took our kids dog sledding, random sidebar. We just like to have fun on this show, if you haven't heard yet. And I was kind of terrified because some of my kids were going to actually drive the dog sleds. Now, not the younger ones, but like Addison and Jacob, teenagers, terrifying to begin with. Actually a blast. You go about 12 miles an hour. It's kind of peaceful. I remember I did parasailing years ago down in Florida. I was terrified. One of the most peaceful things ever. Dog sledding is not exactly like parasailing, but my point was it was enjoyable. It was fun. And for some reason, that's the shirt I'm wearing right now. But let's get back to the topic at hand, which is Husker football. All right, I promise I prepped for this show, just like always. But if you're pretty excited about what we saw from Dylan Raiola at the spring game, smash the like button. But if you're like me, okay, and you believe we have not just one, but at least potentially more. I want to see more from Dylan Kalin in fall camp and as things go along, as he continues to develop. But if you believe we have at least two quarterbacks in that quarterback room right now that are better than what we saw as far as quarterback play all of last season, hit that like button, because I believe Dylan Raiola has shown so far that he would have started on the team last year if he played like he did in the spring game so far this spring, and he was on the team last year. He would have started, which means his play is ahead of what we had last year. And if you believe Harberg is ahead of where he was last year, which would mean his play is currently better than anything we had in that quarterback room last year. If you believe we have two quarterbacks, at least, that are better than what we had a season ago as far as quarterback play on the field, to smash that like button. And as always, if you haven't done so yet, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the content here on the channel, or you just want to show the Carriker Chronicles some love, hit that subscribe button. Now, beyond some of the things that other folks have talked about when it comes to Dylan Raiola, okay, just the way he carries himself, just his demeanor, he kind of looks fairly smooth when he does things, the confidence, the aura that he protrudes so far in a game-like atmosphere, yet a practice, and throughout the scrimmages and the practices so far this spring, some of the things I've been able to see and chat with people about, he just has a confidence and a demeanor about him. He looks like a guy who's been starting in high school for 3, if not 4 years. He looks like a guy who's used to going to a different place and learning a new offense every year. Like, this isn't new for him, okay? And then you look at his skill set, the big arm, the ability to stretch the field, the ability to make the defense not just defend 20 to 30 yards from where the offense has the ball on the line of scrimmage, but we're talking 40, 50, maybe 60 yards in the air. He has an ability. He's not looking to take off and run, okay? He's not without some athleticism, to be clear. He's not a pure pocket passer, even though that's what he technically is. He has the ability to move and slide and find room and space within the pocket, buy time for receivers to get open. And here's the other thing that kind of stood out to me, okay? When you hit a guy that's wide open, and for a 60, 70-yard touchdown pass, like the Jalen Lloyd one, that's exciting. How often is that going to happen against a really good defense? It's got all their starters playing, okay, in the Big Ten. Not a ton. Okay, that's why when I pointed to what Arch Manning did at the Texas spring game, and he looked good, but a lot of his touchdown passes were receivers that were just wide open, which is why I was like, there's either busted coverages or something's going on in Texas's back end in the spring game. What impressed me, actually, was a throw like the two-point conversion, where it's a tight window. And in the past, those passes might have been picked off or at best incomplete. He fit that two-point conversion pass in there to put the white team up 22-21. That was the most impressive thing I saw all day, was rolling the pocket, throwing a bit on the run, hitting a tight window, tight space. It's a condensed area on the two-point conversion because you're at, the 2-3 yard line, so not a lot of room to maneuver with. Things like that are what impressed me, Okay. Obviously not perfect, room to grow, room to improve, all that good stuff. Okay. But with Dylan, he not only looked good, okay, we're going to talk about why he takes some of this with a gigantic grain of salt here in a minute, but he not only looked good, it's the way he carries himself, and it carries himself in the things that he does that are hard for good quarterbacks to do. Not just hit open receivers. I talked about throwing a receiver open a couple times after the spring game in my gut reaction video. Go back and check that out if you missed it. But doing things in tight windows, tight spaces, buying time, allowing guys to get open, and things of that nature. You don't see that a lot from true freshmen, okay? All right, you look at Harberg. We know what he can do with his legs, and that's not what the spring game was about, okay? And the quarterbacks, admittedly, they knew they weren't going to get hit, so that always helps in their performances. Personally, I want to see Harberg hit somebody. I like watching him run. I've said for years the kid can throw. I said he's got an arm. I said he's got, a pocket passer's body, but he can run much better than people realize, and I think that people found that out last year. I said it's always been about mechanics with him. If he can get back to better mechanics, he can throw. He looked much better throwing Saturday than he has in quite a while. Okay, and again, when you sit out of all quarterback meetings and you basically don't really play quarterback for a year, and then all of a sudden you're asked to be in the starting quarterback competition like he was a year ago, that's going to affect you. It's hard. He's human just like anyone else. If I didn't do the Chronicles for a year and then I sat back down and I expected to just have the same exact flow or whatever in this show, hope you find folks enjoy, there'd be a little rust if I took a year off. Okay, so my point is his mechanics are looking better. Not quite where you want to be yet, but definitely better. And he looks better than he did at any point a year ago, plus you add in the fact that the kid can run. I like it. All right, you look at Daniel Kalin. For me, it felt like he didn't quite get as many plays as the other two quarterbacks. Some of his drives just seemed to get shortened for whatever reason here or there. And admittedly, he had more plays than I remembered immediately after the game was over. Once you watch the film, he did have more plays than I thought. It wasn't his best day. Okay, and I'm a big fan of Daniel Kalin, just to be clear. The guy's got big-time talent. I know for a fact coaches in that football building believe he's an NFL quarterback one day. Okay, so this is nothing but love and respect. Spring game just wasn't his best day, so to speak, and that happens sometimes. Oh my gosh, a true freshman might look like an 18-year-old kid at times. Who would have thought? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see what else I've got here. This is a kid, when you watch him, and I think I actually heard Sean Callahan or Steve Sipple talk about this at one point, when you watch him at the podium, and I agree with them, he conducts himself like a kid who's comfortable. He's more comfortable as an 18-year-old kid than I was as a 23-year-old senior at the podium talking to the media. Okay, that's just something I was never comfortable with. Okay, and so he carries himself in a very upright manner, a lot of confidence, a lot of poise for a young kid, and he's got a bright future. Okay, Saturdays maybe wasn't his day specifically, but you look at the three quarterbacks as a whole. This is as talented a quarterback room as Nebraska's had in quite a while. All right, all three quarterbacks dreamed of playing for Nebraska growing up. Okay, two of them are from the state of Nebraska. And the other one, Dylan, dad actually played at Nebraska. And I know Harberg's dad did as well. But they all three dreamed of playing at Nebraska. And when it means more to the players, it just means more. And you're just going to get more out of them. Because if it matters more to you, you're going to give more to something. Now, here's the grain of salt I talked about earlier. Okay? All right. The defense was very shorthanded on Saturday. Okay? They weren't blitzing as much. A lot more base defensive, type play calls. Now, I will say this. You could see that they got a little sick of the offense scoring, and I saw a couple of cross dogs or double-A gap blitzes or whatever it was at the time, I think about the third quarter. So after a while, they did start bringing it a little bit more, but it wasn't the most attacking style of defense. Okay. Now, there was a couple of sacks that maybe weren't called. Okay, maybe a couple of penalties that weren't called that kind of helped the offense out as well. So take this all with a grain of salt. That all being said, I don't know what more, outside of seeing what we saw Saturday in an actual legit game, I don't know what more you could have possibly hoped for, especially from Dylan Raiola. Now, on the April 29th, day I'm recording this, with summer conditioning still ahead, not a single rep of fall camp practice in the books just yet, no games played at this point, You still never know what you're going to get from a true freshman in an actual game. This show's about, do I believe Dylan Raiola is the real deal based on what he's shown us so far? So far, yes. I don't know what more you could ask from him at this point. Okay, and there's a couple other things I'm going to point to towards the back half of this video, the end of this video as well, that go beyond just what I saw on the field Saturday. Okay, now the two positions that needed the most amount of improvement were quarterbacks and wide receivers, and those seem to be the two positions that have improved the most. Now, real quick, before I talk about that briefly and a couple other things, check out our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. You can check them out at dpsconstruction.net. I did an event with them Saturday night. It's a signing that we had scheduled in Blair for months, and they were awesome. All the proceeds that were taken from that were donated to the victims of the devastating tornadoes, not just in Nebraska, but all around the Midwest. But the focus was Nebraska as of Saturday night. So shout out to DPS Construction for setting up that signing, but also for donating all of the proceeds as well. Support a great company, great owner, Jason Armstrong. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Now, more on the quarterbacks and some other thoughts here in a second, but the wide receivers. True freshman from Florida, Ja'Cory Barney. Nebraska seems to have found a little bit of a pipeline back to Florida again with Ja'Cory Barney, Shavers, the linebacker. Like Texas, Florida, Nebraska used to get a lot of good players out of there. Okay, I think we're going to get those pipelines at least reopened a little bit going forward. You look at some other wide receivers, Jalen Lloyd, big play receiver last year. Is he going to be able to not only make the big plays, but more consistent plays as well this year? He seems to be a viable option. Isaiah Nair still, when you factor in experience and talent combined into one player, depending on how he comes back from that knee injury. I only bring that up because I know what it's like to come back from a knee injury. He has the highest ceiling of any receiver in that room this year at this point in time, in my humble opinion. Jamal Banks, probably the guy you can bank on, no pun intended, you can bank on making the biggest impact as a wide receiver for sure, just because he's the most proven. Malachi Coleman, that guy looks like an NFL wide receiver right now. I know he didn't play due to injury, and his name hasn't been brought up as much, but don't forget about that guy. Jaden Doss, Alex Bullock. I mean, there's 7 wide receivers plus more guys in that room right there. We need 3 to 4 guys to step up consistently, but there's 7+ guys that could potentially step up consistently. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. All right, so here's a couple other thoughts I've got. Okay, Dylan Raiola, if you haven't seen this quote, that was emotional. I fought back tears walking out of the tunnel for the tunnel walk. Growing up as a kid, that's what I knew and that's what I watched. Being part of it, you come out of the tunnel and you hear the song, it just got heavy for me. That was Dylan Raiola's quote. You saw him hugging family members before the game. He teared up. This kid dreamt of playing for Nebraska, just like his dad growing up. All right, on the interception that he had, Dylan said, and I quote, "Absolutely, that's my fault. I'll take that. Ball placement's got to be better. I put that on me. It was behind him, the wide receiver. He had to make an acrobatic catch to make that play. That's on me," end quote. That's per Dylan. Hey, that's what he should say. I think the wide receiver should have caught the ball, but that's what the quarterback should say. All right, here are some of the stats from the spring game. Raiola, 16 of 22 passing, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Harberg, 8 of 13 passing, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns passing. Daniel Kalin, 8 of 16 passing, 91 yards. Dante Dowdell rushed the ball 7 times, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. Emmett Johnson, 5 rushes, 25 yards. And Lloyd, 3 receptions, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. All right, when it comes to spring game attendance, ladies and gentlemen, there was only 4 football programs in the country that had 60,000 fans or more in attendance at their spring games. Ohio State, 80,000, Alabama, 72,000 plus, Penn State, 67,000 or so, Nebraska, 60,452. Not half bad coming off a 5-7 football season. Greatest fans in the country, ladies and gentlemen. Now, final thoughts here. When you think about the amount of players that entered the transfer portal so far, okay, Nebraska's at 0. That's probably going to change at some point. Eventually, somebody's going to go throughout the spring. Okay, but you look at the Big Ten as a whole. Illinois, 15 players. Michigan State, 15. Michigan, 11. Indiana, 10. Minnesota, 8. Northwestern, 8. Wisconsin, 7. Ohio State, 6. Penn State, 6. Purdue, 6. Maryland, 5. Iowa, 4. Rutgers, 3 at this point. Nebraska, 0. Okay, you think about the offensive line, and if we have a true freshman starting, We need some big boys to protect him. Check out this O-line. 6'10", 325, Teddy Prohaska. 6'9", 315, Bryce Benhart. 6'8", 350, good Lord, Jacob Hood. 6'6", 310, Turner Corcoran. 6'6", 325, Henry Letowski. 6'6", 285, Grant Bricks. 6'5", 305, Brent Scott. 6'5", 315, Micah Mazuka. 6'5", 300, Gibson Pyle. 6'5", 295, Gunnar Gatula. I mean, and then you think about the experience on that O-line, and I've hinted at this before. Bryce Benhart, 41 starts. Ben Scott, 39 starts. Turner Corcoran, 30 starts. Teddy Prohaska, 18 starts. Henry Letowski, 26 games played in. Thomas Fedoni as a tight end with 12 starts. Micah Mazuka, who's been kind of in and out this spring, has started a ton for Baylor and Florida. You look at the experience on defense, ladies and gentlemen. Ty Robinson is a senior. Nash Hutmaker is a senior. Tommy Hill is a senior. Javin Wright is a senior. Deshaun Singleton is a senior. John Bullock is a senior. Isaac Gifford is a senior. Jamari Butler and Malcolm Hartsogs are young pups in this group, only juniors. So you think about the guys that are going to be around a potentially young starting quarterback, O-line, defense, which can help an offense, obviously. A lot of good things. Here's what needs to end. We've had 16 interceptions. We had 16 interceptions and 30 fumbles, total fumbles, almost statistically an impossibility, you would think. Okay, got to improve on that going forward. There was hope for that from what I saw in the spring game on Saturday. Yeah, a couple of yips. So what do you expect? Okay, but here's something that Coach Rule said that I thought was interesting before the spring game when it comes to toughness. He wants to be even tougher. He wants to take care of the ball more. We got to do things to help a young quarterback. And if it is Dylan that starts, it could be any three of those guys. But if it is Dylan, the more you can do to help a young quarterback, despite how good he looks in a game on April 27th, in a practice game on April 27th, you got to be able to do a lot of things, and being tough as a team as a whole is huge. And here's what he said on toughness, and I quote, "It's a strength. Toughness is not a talent. It's a skill. It's something you can develop," end quote. That's Coach Matt Rule. And then here's something that a friend sent to me, okay, about Kobe Bryant. We're going to put it up on the screen now. And I just love this because this is a great approach. And this was Kobe's approach. So here it is. Kobe Bryant worked like he had no talent, okay? Then he played like he believed he was the best player in the world. Great approach. Prepare with humility, perform with confidence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you can check out CarrikerChronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. It's just science. Here are my 3 questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know the answer in the comments below. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. Now, if a quarterback, do we need a quarterback from the transfer portal? If one of these guys were to leave, okay, and this is per a conversation I had with someone inside the football facility, they'd be hurting, obviously. Okay, now it's hard to sell this. And Matt Rule said he might be open to a potential transfer quarterback. It's hard to sell this situation when you look at Dylan Raiola and Harberg and what Daniel Kalin's potential future is to a transfer portal quarterback. But it's something Rule said he's open to. Do you think it's something Nebraska should seriously consider and possibly do? My only pushback that I have now, after watching Dylan, after watching Harberg, is they run 3 team sessions every practice, nonstop reps. You got 3 quarterbacks who are pretty much getting all the reps right now. Talk about development. All right, should they bring in a transfer portal quarterback or not? Yes or no? I've asked that before, but here it is. Number 2, as I mentioned, 0 transfers, and probably somebody will leave. If not, some tough conversations may have to be had with the current Nebraska coaching staff. But if Nebraska were to bring in another transfer player outside of quarterback, which I just asked about, which position do you think could benefit the most from a transfer player? Okay. And number 3, do Nebraska fans, after the spring game and what we saw and videos like this being made, do Husker fans need to temper expectations, or should they just let the Kool-Aid flow? Until next time, go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the bug.